I believe that to a non-technical person, when you see the model and you see the finished product, you're going to get it. Yes, without a doubt, that's the car. To a technical person, you'll be able to see some of the changes we made, and hopefully for the better.
Okay, so some of these, obviously, some of these parts are ones you're just going to simply have to put and, and bend and form and shape, just as they did back then. Others, I'm assuming, wheels, tires, things of that nature. Bronze or brass or whatever they were, headlights, those kinds of things. You're probably going to have to pick up, I would assume, from suppliers, or are you fabricating those too?
Yeah, it's really quite amazing orchestrated endeavor. There are things where physically bending and breaking, not breaking.
Right.
Breaking,
yeah. I took metal shop.
Do you know? Thank you. In many instances, we'll buy an original part and then have to remake it. A, so we can replicate it,
right.
And B, so that I'll give you a perfect example: the headlights, which are all brass. We bought original brass components, but we have to have them DOT lensed approved, SAE
right.
approved.
Right.
So that won't work. Those were acetylene back then. They actually worked on acetylene.
Yeah,
carbide.
exactly.
So we now have to remake them and expand them, incorporate special flanges to hold the lenses, and that goes on throughout the thing. First, second of all, the vehicle, third of all, the vehicle is quite large for 9 passengers.
Yeah.
So it might have been the scale for a Model T, a very small petite car,
yeah.
Now has to be scaled up. So we took the parking brake handle as an idea and then had it custom made large. There is a orchestra, there's a coordination between hand building things, using original parts to help us replicate modern, but then there's also cutting edge technology. For instance, the wheels you mentioned. I found pictures of wheels that I absolutely loved, and then put it into 3D SolidWorks, contracted with a DOT approved wheel maker, and we have massive carriage wheels that are shaved or CNC machined and have a solid block of aluminum.
Okay.
So they're very strong, very resilient, easy to replicate, rock solid, tough, but look exactly like the original Woodfellows wheels, as they were called.
Okay.
But will be painted and look just like they did back then, but are rock solid and modern. We can turn them out on a CNC machine over and over again.
Okay.
This has been a lot of fun. We're working with a lot of different craftsmen, a lot of different companies all over the country.
Tires were tires were a new technology back then, and some of the cars had just simply solid rubber. Others of them, of course, introduced inflated tires. But they weren't all that good. You had to change tires quite a bit from punctures and things. So what are you doing about the tires? I mean, how are you handling that?
Yes, no on the road vulcanization kits for us. So that's what they had to do back then. It was actually one of the first real serious challenges we had. Given that the vehicle has to be compliant to certain NHTSA rules, National Highway Traffic Safety Association rules, and the vehicle size, its overall scale, and its ability to carry 9 passengers, the weight rating, for the tires exceeded what was available. So we went through the universe of tires, and tires, like you mentioned, they're very particular. You have to get the aspect ratio right. They've got to be very tall and thin. Otherwise, it looks like a modern day truck tire, and it ruins the whole look.
Right.
We ended up, and it's really a remarkable thing, Yellowstone tour buses, the antique Old Yeller, I think they call them.
Right. Yep.
2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever it was, had this wonderful 16-passenger tour bus.
Right.
They used tires that LaFrance fire trucks used.
Okay.
They're fly, very tough, tall, narrow, incredible tread pattern, beautiful. They're one of the only tires out there that fit the look and the load weight rating. We're using the same tires that the Old Yeller and LaFrance fire trucks used.
Yeah, I think several years ago, I think I saw something where Ford Motor Company, I believe it was, or was it General Motors, one of the two, actually paid to have some of those restored for the National Park System.
Indeed they did, and they're using the exact same tires that we did.
Okay.
They're magnificent. You walk up, and again, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. When I walk up to these antique cars, they move you.
Yeah.
One of the things they impact is when you walk up to those massive tires and the incredible spokes, and the scale of these things. So we have them done, and we're rolling. We've actually taken our vehicle for a test drive, and you're on these massive tires. It's moving. It's just fantastic. Very exciting.
So how much new technology have you integrated into this? Because obviously back then there was no such thing as power steering, right? These guys you're going to have to manhandle, and if this is bigger and heavier and longer than what the cars back then would have been, I assume you're going to want to give it some type of, the driver, make the job a little easier, than what it would be otherwise. So what kind of bows have you done to, modern technology? LED lights, power steering, power brakes, kind of go into that a little bit.
Sure. The lights are LED. The lights are LED lights, and that's number one for battery drainage, and also, again, an ode to the modernization.
Yeah.
The build techniques, how we're designing and building the car, is truly cutting edge in terms of the SolidWorks. And you stop at the computer and then you go to our 100 years of experience on the floor. But I could show you 3D images being spun around of the vehicle, and it's remarkable. The vehicle itself, the suspension and the suspension feels very antique in that I wanted a kind of a bouncy ride. I want that. I want people to step up in, and I want them to look down and above, and I want them to bounce around a little bit. The brakes and the steering, we've done a number of techniques and tricks, car building tricks and techniques, to fool the feel into being very light. Now we have an option to go power, so there will be some anachronisms in the vehicle when necessary. Something as ridiculous as if you bought a car in 1909, it didn't come with a windshield.
Right.
That was an option. It didn't come with bumpers. Those were options.
Right.
Windshield wipers were options, obviously, if it had no windshield. So we obviously are giving everybody a windshield, okay?
Right.
A requirement is heat. So we're putting heat into the vehicle. That's normal. But we've done things like adjust the weight ratio of the vehicle, adjust camber and caster, get a very high ratio steering box. And when I drove the vehicle, gave them a larger steering wheel with a bigger grip, all brass and wood, but albeit larger.
Right.
Mechanical advantage you gain from these things we've done, you add them up, 1%, 2%, 3%, the steering is extraordinarily light. I don't believe we're going to need to put power steering in the vehicle.
Okay.
I don't believe we're going to need to do it. The brakes, right now they're manual. We have regenerative braking. The vehicle practically stops itself without the brakes. We also happen to have very large, oversized, hidden disc brakes and a drum caliper, a drum brake, parking brake. So where you pull the parking brake on, it's stopped. You hit the brakes, you've got regenerative braking from the electric system, and you've got four-wheel truck disc brakes, which you don't even know are there, but will stop this thing on a dime. A light pedal. Can we incorporate in power brakes? We absolutely can. That's driver feedback. We're going to deliver the prototype. We're going to let people enjoy the vehicle. And if they say, the steering is okay, but wouldn't it be better? The brakes are okay, but wouldn't it be better? And we can easily introduce those things in.
Right.
I'm going for, from a number of reasons, a very simplistic vehicle. One, because I want it to be authentic, and two, the more parts on anything, the more chance for something to break. So I want it to be simple, easy to repair, nostalgic, user-friendly, user-repairable, and then we can always add if we need to.
Right. Well, I'm hearing, besides a train behind you, I'm hearing that there are some, you're having to meet various government safety rules here. What are sort of the operational parameters of this thing? Is this going to be sort of licensable as a low-speed electric vehicle? Does it have to meet, federal highway safety crash standards? I mean, go into that a little bit. What do you have to meet?
Sure. For all intents and purposes, this could be qualified as an LSV, as a low-speed vehicle.
Right.
The one main parameter that we do not fit is the weights classification. I believe LSVs are 3,000. It has been changing a bit, but it's about 3,000 pounds.
Right.
And we're above that. But everything else, our top speed is 30 in the city. We have a geofence GPS system, which once you cross over Central Park, it's mandated at 5 miles an hour. That's a new Central Park Conservancy requirement.
Okay.
So we're talking about a 5 mile per hour vehicle most of the time, and the average speed in New York with traffic is like 11 miles an hour.
Right.
I don't care how fast you want to go, you're only going as fast.
You're not going to go that fast, yeah.
That's what it's going to be. But we still are, it's a client requirement because safety is a concern. We are fulfilling a requirement for a multi-purpose vehicle 10,000 GVWR component. So passenger vehicles are the most restrictive. Crash testing, ABS brakes, all the things we hear about when Volvo says we're the safest vehicle on the marketplace, okay? We found something that we felt was going to provide the core elements of safety and compliance with the government, but be as least restrictive like an LSV vehicle, because that's what our vehicle is. So we don't have to worry about ABS, we don't have to worry about crash testing, but things like safety belts and safety glass and conspicuity markings and lights and refractivity, the ability for the parking brake to hold, stoppage, accelerate,
right.
All of those things we do have to have requirements for. We are going to be completely compliant. I spent a lot of time in the past 8 months of my life reading the FMVSS guides, all 86 pages of it, multiple times.
Yeah.
There are lighter reads out there, but we're gonna be delivering on what we need to deliver for our requirements for this vehicle.
Okay, so you're not afraid that NHTSA is going to come in and say, this doesn't, this does not comply. You're going to have to, you know, park it, get it off the road, or worse, destroy it, kind of thing that might, you know.
Not afraid in the least, because we're actually building it to their requirements. And we actually have a consultant who works in Virginia, Alan Aylor, who's been very, very helpful, who is a crash test official. He a private endeavor, so anyone who wants to get vehicles tested and whatnot, they send it to him, and he's our consultant. And
okay.
I'm on the phone with him once a week. So we are. I welcome inquiries, because
right.
we're doing it by the book. We're doing it as required for this vehicle.
So when's the rollout of the prototype? When do we actually get to see it?